Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
Chen Ming first installed the Gamma be removed from the Glimmer class on the Gladiator class. Then he sent it a Gladiator-class spacecraft operation manual. Chen Ming had already found a copy of the operation manuals of all the spacecrafts except the Afterglow ship he had on the internet some time ago. It was even easier to find a spacecraft like the Gladiator class, which was an older model. However, Chen Ming only found the operation manual of the ordinary Gladiator class and did not find the operation manual of the Gladiator class, which had been extensively modified by the Tachyon Technology Company. There must be some differences in the operation of the two spacecrafts, and Chen Ming had no good way to solve it. He could only let Gamma be study it himself. As long as he was given some time to learn and then actually operate it, it should be about the same. He believed in the learning ability of the Afterglow AI. After the core was installed, Chen Ming gave Gamma be the right to move freely and let it familiarize itself with the spacecraft. Then, Chen Ming began to make moves on the refraction class. He ran outside the spaceship with the tools, and seeing that only he could see the three-dimensional image of the spaceship, he kept gesturing at the refraction with the cutting tools. Gamma A, who didn't understand what Chen Ming was doing, asked, "What are you doing?" "Try the effect of my ability." Although Chen Ming didn't know what his panel was like. However, he had told Gamma A before that his ability to control spaceships and them was psychic. So Gamma A naturally understood that Chen Ming wanted to test the effect of his psychic. Gamma A obviously didn't know anything about psychic. When Chen Ming took out the spirit stone before, it didn't say anything. Instead, Gamma B, who had been silent, helped Chen Ming solve some confusion. So Gamma A didn't express any opinions after hearing Chen Ming's answer, but just observed silently. Gamma B, who had already flown out for a distance, also flew back and became a member of the group observing Chen Ming's operation. With the experience of dismantling half of the Afterglow destroyer last time, Chen Ming quickly dismantled the outer armor of the refraction class and cut open the hull of the refraction in a way that would only cause minimal damage. A passage leading to the installation location of Gamma A was removed. After removing Gamma A, Chen Ming took a look at the panel. Controlled AI Individual, Afterglow Gamma Class AI Core, Gamma A. Gamma A, like Gamma B, was under Chen Ming's control. So Chen Ming inserted the core back. After Gamma A regained control of the hull, Chen Ming casually transferred the control of the refractor to another ship, and then glanced at the panel again. AI-assisted connection ship, Gladiator class, Tak Honkai Gladiator class frigate, refractor class unmanned destroyer. Incomplete connection. As expected, the refractor class appeared in the column of AI-assisted connection ship, but unlike the Gladiator class controlled by Gamma B, the refractor class had an incomplete connection after it. In order to figure out what this incomplete connection meant, Chen Ming directly tried to control the refractor class to start the engine. After a very short delay that had never happened since Chen Ming was able to control the spacecraft, the engine was started. After the engine was started, Gamma A suddenly asked Chen Ming, "Did you just give me an order through psychic power?" Chen Ming was obviously stunned, as if he understood something, and answered Gamma A absent-mindedly, "Well, you can understand it this way." Chen Ming did not continue to talk to Gamma A, but was thinking. Because just when he heard Gamma A's question, he immediately understood the meaning of this incomplete connection. If it is a complete connection, such as Gamma B controlling the frigate-level fighter class, then everything is the same as Chen Ming actively controlling the spacecraft. He can control the fighter being controlled by Gamma B in any situation without any restrictions. The incomplete connection is because the AI core of the Gamma class is not adaptable enough to the destroyer, and it is impossible to transmit Chen Ming's orders in real time on the controlled spacecraft. So after receiving Chen Ming's order, the situation that should have not reacted at all and directly executed the order instinctively has changed. Gamma A needed reaction time to receive and execute commands, which caused a short delay in Chen Ming's command. In fact, this situation is equivalent to Chen Ming completely handing over all control of the spacecraft to Gamma A. He himself gave up or was restricted and could only control and issue commands to Gamma A. The problem caused by this is obvious. Chen Ming's efficiency in controlling the spacecraft is reduced, and he cannot operate accurately and without delay. But there are also benefits. It allows Chen Ming to indirectly control the refractive level with an additional spacecraft control position. This means that he can use one more spacecraft at the same time. Since Chen Ming was not particularly good at operating the spacecraft, the advantages obviously outweighed the disadvantages. So Chen Ming did not continue the test and directly repaired all the damage on the refraction class caused by disassembly. At the same time, he recalled the Gamma B that had run away again at some point and asked them to continue to stand by here. The things to do outside have been done, so it is almost time to go back. Chen Ming thought about it for a while and decided to take the Centurion class back to the space station. If there is a combat ship belonging to him staying in the dock, he can feel more at ease at ordinary times. As for why the Gladiator class was not brought, it was because the Gladiator class modified by Tachyon technology was a bit too ostentatious. The Gladiator class is also a kind of iconic ship of the military. It can be seen at a glance that this Gladiator has undergone a lot of modifications, which may cause some unnecessary trouble. So the Gladiator class can only be placed here for the time being. After spending a short period of time, as short as when he came, Chen Ming stood on the floor of the space station again. The first thing Chen Ming did after returning was to walk around the repair shop and found Old Wu squatting in the corner smoking. Tian Jiwen was also following Old Wu at this time. When he saw Chen Ming, he showed a complicated expression on his face. He turned around and left without saying hello. Only Old Wu, who was caught slacking off, was left. However, he did not feel embarrassed at all, and even reached into his pocket to give Chen Ming a cigarette. But Chen Ming refused directly. "No, I don't smoke." Old Wu shrugged, threw the cigarette but in his mouth, lit a new one for himself, and asked Chen Ming after taking a puff, "What do you want to see me for?" "Well, I want to buy something special. You have a lot of connections, so I came to ask you. The agency fee will not be reduced for you." Old Wu suddenly showed a profiteer-like smile on his face and put his hand on Chen Ming's shoulder and said, "Hey, we are so familiar with each other. Why are you still so distant?" "How much?" Chen Ming stretched out 5 fingers and said, "This amount." Old Wu's face was full of smiles. The smile became even bigger. "No problem. What do you want to buy? I have a way to introduce you." "Intelligence." Old Wu's expression became a little more serious and asked, "What intelligence?" "Intelligence on pirates with wanted bounties. I need their bounty amount, their recent whereabouts, and the general composition of their fleet." "What do you want to do?" "Find a target that can be used to test the performance of my modified spacecraft." Old Wu narrowed his eyes, stared at Chen Ming for a few times and said, "Okay, follow me." Old Wu took Chen Ming into the city of the space station and came to the bar where he and Chen Ming had been last time. He greeted the bartender in a very familiar way and took Chen Ming directly to the back of the bar. After passing through 2 rooms in a row, Chen Ming and Old Wu stood in a small closed room. There was a computer on the desk here, and an additional touchscreen was connected to the opposite position of the computer. And behind the desk, there was a person who was doing nothing. The man was dressed elegantly and wore a pair of glasses, looking like an ordinary clerk. After noticing that Old Wu came in, he raised his eyebrows and asked, "Old Wu, you don't drink, but you come to chat with me?" Old Wu smiled and said, "Hey, we are not here to drink today." "Oh, then he is here to buy things. Is this the one who wants to buy?" Glasses looked at Chen Ming, who was standing next to Old Wu. Before Chen Ming spoke, Old Wu said directly, "Yes." He said he wanted to test the performance of the modified spacecraft and wanted to pick out some pirates with bounties. Old Wu came forward and said in a voice that Chen Ming couldn't hear, "Try to get some easier targets. This guy can't be left out casually." Glasses didn't say anything, but the word "reassured" flashed in his eyes. He asked Chen Ming to sit on the chair opposite him, where he could just touch the display screen. "I have listed the intelligence that is available for you. Basically, there is a general introduction. You can pick and choose. You need to pay to see more detailed intelligence." Chen Ming nodded, slid his hand on the screen, and selected the appropriate target. His purpose of causing trouble for the pirates is to obtain the armed ship license that may be obtained in the future. So when selecting targets, Those pirates who only operate in a single star region are not very good for him. There must be pirates with signs of activity in the entire star region. Only after they are dealt with can they leave an impression on the government. However, after Chen Ming looked at the brief information of the pirates on the display screen, he found that the ones on the list were all small fish and shrimps. The highest bounty was only a little over 2 million, with a fleet of 4 frigates, and the military subsystems might not be fully equipped, so there was no point in killing them. After failing to find a suitable target, Chen Ming raised his head again, looked at Glasses and asked, "Are there any more powerful pirates?" Glasses obviously remembered Lao Wu's request and said, "Those people will be more dangerous. If you just want to test the performance of the spacecraft, these should be enough, right?" Chen Ming frowned slightly and said, "Not enough." Before Glasses could reply, Chen Ming suddenly heard a familiar voice behind him. "Business is about accepting everyone who comes. Why not sell things that can be sold?" Chen Ming turned his head and saw that Lao Wu, the owner of the hardware store, had appeared here at some point. And Glasses suddenly stood up and respectfully called Lao Wu, "Boss." While Lao Wu glared at Lao Wu, he waved to Glasses and said, "List all the information that can be sold." "Yes." Lao Wu, who was standing next to him, could only stand aside helplessly after being glared at for a few times. After all, he was not the one who made the decision in this bar. Anyway, he had done what the factory manager had told him to do, and whether people were safe or not was not his problem. How could he stop Chen Ming, a living person, from doing anything he really wanted to do? Moreover, he had been optimistic about Chen Ming from the beginning because of Lao Wu's vision. If Lao Wu thought that Chen Ming could kill more powerful pirates, then he might as well think so. As Glasses released more information about the pirates, Chen Ming's target was quickly determined. The target he chose was the protagonist of an attack he happened to see in today's news bulletin. This group of pirates attacked a caravan that was about to deliver supplies to a small colony, and after a fierce conflict with the local patrol team, they successfully entered the hyperspace channel and got rid of the patrol team's pursuit. Although the news only had a few pictures, relying on these pictures and simple logical thinking, Chen Ming could be sure that the degree of damage to their ships was definitely not low. And the goods they had just robbed must also need to be sold. Then their whereabouts afterwards were actually very easy to determine. Unless they would rather risk the disintegration of their spacecraft to go to a farther place for repair and sale of stolen goods, their next destination must be the nearest pirate space station. So in order to save trouble, Chen Ming chose this group of pirates who were about to come here. The bounty on their leader was 22 million. There were also several people under his command who were also bountied, ranging from tens to millions, which should be considered a bit heavy. After seeing Chen Ming's choice, the boss said with some surprise, "Are you sure you want to choose this?" "What's wrong?" "Nothing, but I just happened to have a video of the patrol team over there exchanging fire with them. If you choose this, I can give you more information." The boss raised his head and said to Glasses, "Just release the specific information, and I will give him the rest in person later." Glasses silently operated on the computer and displayed more detailed information about this group of pirates on the screen. This group of pirates has a total of 3 destroyers and 8 frigates. Their destroyers were converted from a type of merchant ship called Mule class. Most of the frigates were of unknown brands and were also modified by patchwork. The intelligence described their spacecraft in great detail. It also specifically noted that the militarized subsystem of the Mule class was removed from a military frigate and forcibly installed. As for why the intelligence was so clear, Chen Ming thought he should ask Old Wu, who worked in the repair shop. Although they seemed to be not very strong and could not beat the patrol team, it should not be a problem for them to attack some scattered caravans. It also matched what Chen Ming had seen in the news before. Old Wu suddenly came to Chen Ming's side, looked at Chen Ming's target, and said as if he remembered something, "I remember that this group of pirates seemed to have some relationship with Lud." Lud? Chen Ming felt that he seemed to have heard of this name somewhere, but he couldn't remember it. The boss seemed to know a lot about Lurd. He frowned slightly and asked, "Lurd has developed here, from Zwajing?" "It should be." The two people's riddle-like conversation made Chen Ming completely unable to understand, so he simply asked directly, "What is Lurd? What is Zwajing?" The boss looked at him and turned his gaze back to Chen Ming and said, You don't know? Then this is a bit complicated. You just know that Lourdes is the name of a church, and Zwudging is a group of crazy people who believe in this religion. They can do anything. If you check it yourself, you should only find the Lourdes church. It is highly likely that you will not find any information about Zwudging. If you're interested, you can come to my place later and I can talk to you in detail. Okay. Chen Ming nodded to the boss with some gratitude, but I still don't quite understand. The boss thought for a moment, pointed to the detailed information of the pirates on the screen and said, "Look at these two ships. Do you know what they are?" Looking at the two ships in the pirate fleet that the boss pointed to that were obviously highly modified, Chen Ming said, "Drum class, fuel transport ship. There are special facilities inside to suppress the violent reaction of the ship's fuel due to various situations. Generally, only large fleets will bring such ships. It seems that these two pirate ships have a lot of modifications on the engine and the hull. The speed should be very fast, and the other things are hard to see." The boss withdrew his hand from the screen and said, "You know it well. So why do you think this small fleet brought two highly modified fuel transport ships and even took them to attack other fleets?" Chen Ming realized a possibility almost instantly. Self-destruction? Yes, the people in Ludzwojing are all crazy. You should be careful when the time comes. I know. The boss continued to say patiently, "Also, you know the process after it's done, right?" Although Chen Ming felt a little strange about the boss's attitude, he still replied, "Yes. You need to go to the colony where the Star Domain government is located to hand in the battle video and physical evidence. Generally, you can just tow the abandoned ship over, but it would be best if there is a corpse to verify the DNA." He did some homework on the way here with Lao Wu. Although the armed ship license is ultimately approved by the government of the prosperous Star Domain, the pirate bounty is still the responsibility of the local Star Domain government. After the local government confirms the authenticity, it will report the matter to the higher levels for statistics. The boss seems to be satisfied with the fact that Chen Ming has prepared before doing anything. He continued, "Conflicts are prohibited in our galaxy now. You must remember this. Don't give people a chance to escape and run back." Chen Ming didn't know what to say, so he could only nod and pointed to the screen and said, "The price of this information? That's easy. If you can do one thing for me, it will be free, and I can even give you other benefits." "What is it?" The boss's face suddenly darkened. "Bring their captain back alive." 2 days later, Chen Ming completed today's renovation task early, which took about 5 minutes. After lying on the bed for a while to rest and replenish the energy consumed by the repair, he contacted the factory director and asked him to send someone to receive this special batch of goods. When everything was done, it was almost noon. It was also the time Chen Ming had planned before. What Chen Ming had to do next was to complete the task of hunting bounties. If possible, complete the additional tasks given by the boss. The boss, who was originally kind 2 days ago, suddenly showed that gloomy expression. Chen Ming guessed that the colony had something to do with the boss, and then the pirates attacked the caravan that provided supplies to the colony, and the boss got angry. Therefore, Chen Ming needed to capture the person and borrow him for 2 more days. The boss also promised to return the person to Chen Ming. Then, given the opportunity to obtain intelligence for free and the benefits given by the boss, who was obviously a person of extraordinary status, Chen Ming was very happy to do this additional task. However, if a fight really broke out, Chen Ming might not be able to save the spaceship driven by the pirate leader, and it would be even more difficult to save the people. So Chen Ming did not force it, and everything was up to fate. After Chen Ming drove the iron ore and took the Centurion away from the space station, he first went to the dark cemetery and took away all the other ships. He had almost estimated the location of the pirates' return, and all he had to do next was to intercept them on their way. For this, Chen Ming also spent some money and prepared a special device. Blocking pulse generator. It can use the special environment of the hyperspace channel to cause the surrounding spacecraft to have an effect similar to that of the spacecraft just jumping out of the hyperspace, and the speed is reduced to 0. However, the maximum speed that a spacecraft can reach in the hyperspace channel is limited. It is not limited by the performance of the spacecraft itself, but by the fixed limit of the hyperspace channel. The smaller the ship, the easier it is to reach this upper limit in the hyperspace channel, while the larger the ship, the slower the speed. The pirates who are Chen Ming's target are all small boats, and they can definitely reach the upper limit of the hyperspace channel speed. But this upper limit is much slower than the speed of light that can be reached in the normal universe environment. It is enough for Chen Ming to capture the target's position and use blocking pulses. Chen Ming sailed his ship quickly in the hyperspace channel and soon arrived at the predetermined location. After making some special preparations and waiting for nearly 2 hours, the Centurion class in the hyperspace channel scanned several ships that were speeding through sensors. 2 destroyers, 6 frigates, and the 3 missing ships were destroyed by the pirates in the conflict with the patrol. Many of the remaining ships also had damage that had only undergone simple maintenance. In addition, Chen Ming also saw several square cabins mounted outside the hulls of the 2 mule-class ships. They should have dismantled the cargo hold of the spacecraft they robbed. If Chen Ming could solve this mission perfectly, he would also be able to harvest a batch of additional supplies. Chen Ming thought very well about the rewards of the mission. However, he might not be able to really pay attention to avoid these goods when the battle really starts. And because he has few ships, there are more issues that are more worthy of attention in the battle than these goods. So he determined the pirates' return route in advance, as well as the locations where they might be encountered at different times, and came here early and made some arrangements specifically for them. These arrangements will be reflected on the battlefield immediately. At the same time when the Centurion-class sensor scanned the pirates obviously also noticed the 3 spaceships blocking their way. Fighter Kai, Centurion, and Shimmer. Fighter Kai is controlled by Gamma B. Centurion and Shimmer are both under Chen Ming's personal control. Although he had to operate 2 spaceships at the same time, Chen Ming was not awkward at all when he actually did it. Instead, it was like he was controlling his own hands and feet, very smooth. It was almost the same when he controlled the iron or before. Although the various functions on the iron ore are complex and diverse, it is not a mess to actually control them. This is also one of the hidden benefits brought by the panel. At this time, the 3 ships are keeping a certain distance from each other, blocking the pirates from continuing to move forward along the hyperspace channel. Although the 3 lonely frigates are a bit shabby compared to the configuration of 2 destroyers and 6 escorts on the pirate side. But the pirate leader on the pirate ship did not dare to act rashly at this time, and only dared to frown and observe the front. The reason lies in this strange ship configuration. This Yue ship mixed into the suspected military fleet, which is strange and wrong no matter how you look at it. Before figuring out the details of these 3 ships, the pirate leader directly ordered the fleet to slow down, deploy the shield, and send a communication request while slowly advancing. But their communication request was like a drop in the ocean without any response. Seeing this, the pirate leader almost knew what these 3 ships were here for. At this time, a pirate beside him couldn't help but said, "Boss, do you want to do it directly?" The pirate leader waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, it's a bit difficult to deal with the 2 military ships, and the fighter seems to have some problems. Try it first. We are not in good condition now. It's better not to fight if we can. Even if we fight, we must keep a retreat first. What's the situation outside the channel now?" The voice of a pirate came from the communication device next to the pirate leader's ear. "No abnormality. The sensor didn't scan anything. You can go out at any time." The pirate leader was not relieved by this good news, but felt that something was wrong. "Only these 3 ships? Then why do they come to us?" "No, keep getting closer, keep sending communications, and see what they want to do." The pirates wanted to try to contact Chen Ming, but Chen Ming didn't accept it at all. Instead, he directly gave orders to let Gamma B play on its own, and at the same time turned on the shields of the other 2 ships. At the moment the shield was turned on, Chen Ming saw that the amplitude energy values on the panels of the 2 ships had continued to increase by more than 10 points. However, this increase in the amplitude energy value to maintain the shield was immediately offset by the amplitude energy dissipation of the ship, and the amplitude energy value remained at 0. Only when the actual battle began would the amplitude energy value rise again. After confirming that the most basic and important function of the combat ship was fine, Chen Ming also let the 2 ships start to accelerate and prepare for the battle. The pirates, after noticing the movement of the ship, also knew that this battle must be fought. Their 2 destroyers plus 6 escorts against 3 escorts, the advantage was on their side. What was there to be afraid of? And they also planned to confront Chen Ming head-on. Chen Ming was not afraid at all. When both sides were about to enter the range of the exchange of fire, he gave the order to the refractor class that had been hidden outside to enter the hyperspace channel. A few seconds later, the refractor class suddenly appeared in the hyperspace channel, behind the pirate fleet. The sharp blade in his hand stabbed out from behind the pirate's buttocks. Even if the refraction is an auxiliary ship, its combat capability is guaranteed. A ball of electromagnetic pulses with violent arc flashing was instantly emitted from the opened electromagnetic capture cabin, paralyzing the 3 ships closest to the refraction. 2 ordinary frigates and a mule-class destroyer. The outer side of this mule-class ship is not loaded with cargo, so it should not be the leader's ship. However, this does not affect anything. Being able to directly paralyze a destroyer, no matter which one it is worth the price Chen Ming paid to arrange it in advance. You should know that his iron ore was affected by the electromagnetic pulse of the refraction last time, which directly caused many equipment on the ship to be completely damaged and needed to be repaired. But the pity is that these pirate ships all have military subsystems. No matter how good or not, suitable or not, they can be started anyway. Being able to start up means that the radiation energy system can relieve the pressure of electromagnetic pulses on the equipment. Before the arc ball actually touches the spacecraft, it can only temporarily paralyze some of the spacecraft's equipment, and it only needs to be restarted and simply maintained to work again. However, the refractive class can launch more than one arc ball, and the arc ball is not the only attack method on the ship. At the moment of paralyzing 3 spacecraft, the ion beam and pulse laser cannon on the refractive class also concentrated their firepower on the engine of the mule class, intend to completely destroy its ability to escape. However, the ion beam itself is only an auxiliary type of weapon, so the actual damage effect is not ideal. However, the pulse laser cannon that fires multiple energy shells is very effective when hitting the hull. Groups of shuttle-shaped energy aggregates fired at high speeds constantly peel off the armor of the pirate spacecraft at the location of the hit, and also destroy the engine of their spacecraft. Even if the firepower of the refractive class is really not enough to destroy the target in a short time, the arc balls alone could have paralyzed the 3 ships until the refractor ran out of fuel. And all this happened in just a few seconds. It was only now that the pirate leader realized that they had suddenly lost communication with the 3 ships and noticed the refractor behind them. What's going on? Why is there a new afterglow ship coming to attack us? The pirate mule-class driver saw the appearance of the refractor clearly on the camera screen outside the ship, and his expression looked a little panicked. He immediately reminded the others loudly, "That's an electromagnetic capture ship. It has an electromagnetic shielding device on board, which shields all sensor signals. Even now our sensors have not detected it. That electric ball can create EMP in a large area, and it must not be approached." Listening to his men's narration, the pirate leader's expression was a little ugly. He knew very well that they were in trouble now. Just the Afterglow electromagnetic ship, which used technology that was much more advanced than theirs, was enough to make them suffer. Not to mention the 3 frigates in front that had problems at first glance. If they are attacked from both sides, it will definitely be a big problem. So their only choice now is to temporarily abandon the 3 ships that have been controlled and find a way to break through the current situation of being caught in the middle. Then consider whether to fight or run. Since they have decided to do this, it should not take too many choices to break through a 200-meter destroyer with a powerful electromagnetic pulse device and 3 frigates that are less than 100 meters in total. The pirate's choice is very clear and correct. But in actual action, things may not develop as the pirate leader wants. Facing the pirate fleet that is rushing over, and there is only 1 ship left to drive away 4 escorts, Chen Ming directly controlled the Centurion to rush up with the shield on. Rushed into the firepower range of the 5 pirate ships head-on. The 2 Tears and 6 light needles that Chen Ming specially installed and modified were the first to enter the range. A large number of high-explosive armor-piercing shells and high-speed needles rushed straight to the fleet. Immediately, the shields of the 2 frigates at the front began to fluctuate violently. The two frigates were forced to slow down and shut down their shields, hiding behind other ships. Then the pirates' counterattack followed. As pirates, their ships can be bad, but their weapons must not be bad. Although their spaceship weapons were not as good as Chen Ming's carefully modified weapons. However, the concentrated fire of the remaining few spaceships still caused the Centurion's radiation energy value to soar by hundreds of times the moment they engaged in a firefight. The panel that Chen Ming had been keeping in front of him could easily show the power of this round of concentrated fire. Radiation energy capacity 877, 806/900. The Centurion's radiation energy capacity was almost fully utilized, and there was an extra value in brackets. When the Centurion's radiation energy was dispersed in the gap between the pirate ship's firepower and reached the value in the brackets, the radiation energy value did not continue to drop, but was completely stuck here. Because spaceship radiation energy is actually divided into two types. One is the radiation energy that the spacecraft actively increases. That is, the radiation energy generated when the spacecraft maintains the shield and uses high-intensity weapons. The radiation energy produced in this way can be discharged unconditionally on the premise that the spacecraft itself is deliberately designed. It is generally called soft radiation energy. In addition to soft radiation energy, there is another kind of radiation energy. It is the radiation energy that passively increases when the spacecraft shield is hit. This part of radiation energy is not in the initial design of the spacecraft, and these radiation energies will also produce different fluctuations according to the type and angle of the weapon hit, and cannot be prevented in advance. Therefore, such radiation energy cannot be quickly discharged during the operation of the shield, but will continue to accumulate in the spacecraft power grid. Only by completely shutting down the shield system can this part of the radiation energy, which is usually called hard radiation energy, be dissipated. Therefore, when the Centurion was almost hit to the radiation energy limit by a round of firepower, Chen Ming directly shut down its shield and symbolically launched a missile. Then he activated the Centurion's built-in damping position device. Although it must shut down the shield and stop using weapons when it is started, it is indeed a device independent of the radiation energy system. Therefore, when it is turned on, the Centurion class can continue to dissipate radiation energy normally. Before the time that the damping position device can last ends, it is enough for the Centurion class to dissipate radiation energy to a safe level, then continue to take the next round of damage. While the Centurion was already exchanging fire with the pirates, the Gladiator class controlled by Gamma B also broke into the battle area from the flank in the gap between the pirates' firepower. The target it wanted to attack was naturally the core of this group of pirates, the Mule class with several cargo holds mounted on the outside. The Gladiator class approached the Mule at the fastest speed it could reach in the channel, and the two Cyber SRM missiles that had been prepared were fired one after another. Rushed to the Mule protected by the shield and other ships. The pirate ship immediately activated the point defense weapons on their ship, trying to destroy the missiles halfway. But the Cyber SRM missile, like the Gladiator class, is a product of tachyon technology. The sensor system on the missile body allows it to automatically trigger the second stage explosion when it detects that it is about to be intercepted and destroyed by the point defense weapon. A large number of high-speed needles will fly out with the secondary explosion of the missile. It has a strong lethality to the shield. The target of the missile, the Mule class, its energy system and shield system removed from the frigate instantly produced the same performance as the Centurion when facing this attack. The shield has an unnatural vibration and may be overloaded at any time. Chen Ming specially reset the missile launch bay of Cyber SRM and repaired it with the combat supplies he prepared before setting out for hunting. A new warhead instantly appeared in the launch bay, ready to be launched again at any time. As long as one of them can hit, the Mule will be directly overloaded. However, Gamma B did not launch the second round. Instead, it immediately activated the plasma thruster installed when the tachyon technology transformed the Gladiator after the first round of missile launch. The tail engine of the Gladiator was instantly activated at full power, and a large amount of bright green plasma was splashed out of the tail flame outlet. The skyrocketing maneuverability allowed it to instantly distance itself from the pirate fleet. Once the distance was widened, the missile weapons were not easy to use. Chen Ming knew that Gamma B did not do it on purpose. It was just a mistake in coordination caused by their unfamiliarity. The problem was not big, because in addition to the Cyber SRM missiles, the Gladiator also had 2 ion beams that continued to attack the mule. Although the ion beam on the refractive class performed poorly just now, it was because it did not encounter the right environment. And now, I saw that while 2 ion beams hit the mule-class shield, there were also a lot of arcs flashing where the ion beams hit, and the arcs and indirectly generated electromagnetic pulses were constantly damaging the mule-class ship's hull. This is the special effect of the ion beam. Its beam can stimulate this part of the hard radiation energy while the hard auxiliary energy of the spacecraft rises, generating these arcs that can directly penetrate the shield. This arc and electromagnetic pulse instantly paralyzed the mule-class weapons, and the flashing arcs were still spreading to the side, possessing a very terrifying suppression ability. However, the pirates are not fools. After clearly noticing the special effect of the ion beam, they immediately turned off the shield. They chose to let the armor withstand the attack of the ion beam, which has a weak destructive ability. The limitation of the ion beam itself was once again reflected. However, there is another thing on the Gladiator class. High-energy focusing system module. Chen Ming had deliberately not let the refractor class, which also had this module, use it before, just to prevent the pirates from being prepared and to be able to play its role in more critical places. The moment the Mule class closed its shield, the high-energy focusing module of the Gladiator was immediately activated. The ion beams at the 2 medium-sized load-bearing points on the outside of the hull showed energy fluctuations visible to the naked eye, like ion balls. The ion beams, which could only slowly damage the ship's armor, instantly thickened several circles. The place where the outer side of the Mule class's armor was hit even had metal explosions, and a large amount of molten iron was squeezed and cracked and splashed out due to the temperature difference between the inner and outer layers. However, such power and destructive speed are still a bit slow for a Mule-class ship with a length of about 130 meters. With the cover of other ships, the Gladiator class could not directly attack the engine. Before the radiation energy value of the Mule class was dissipated, such an ion beam was not enough to paralyze it. If the shield is turned on again, the next wave will not have such a good opportunity to get close to the fighter class. But Chen Ming actually prepared another thing on the fighter class. Overload power grid. This is a modification that Chen Ming chose to install on the fighter class after thinking about it 2 days ago. After all, the explosion of all aspects generated in an instant is really useful. Moreover, the overload power grid installed by Chen Ming is the overload power grid technology that he found on the internet after 30 years of development and improvement. And when checking the new overload power grid technology, Chen Ming also realized where he had seen the term "lude" before. It was on his terminal, in the name of the professional book that recorded the overload power grid and a series of other dangerous transformation technologies. The overload power grid modification was made by the people of Ludzwijing. They seem to be using these technologies to announce their existence to the outside world. However, apart from the updated professional book, Chen Ming did not find any other records about the people of Ludzwijing. Chen Ming did not know what the people of Ludzwijing were like, but their technology was indeed useful. So Chen Ming didn't care who invented this technology. It's enough to work and work well. Just like now, with the dual support of the overload power grid and the high-energy focusing system. The intensity of the ion beam emitted by the Gladiator is enough to generate electromagnetic pulses by itself, bursting out a terrifying power that the Mule-class armor can hardly resist. The armor was penetrated almost instantly, forcing other ships to stay close to the Mule class to block the ion beam that can ionize almost everything. At this time, the modified fuel ship that Chen Ming had been paying close attention to finally took action. Although it only opened a very simple shield in front of the hull, and the armor on the side of the Fitness looked almost the same as if it had nothing. But its front armor is very thick and seems to be able to withstand most attacks from the front. Chen Ming can probably guess why it has such a design. It is to be able to rush to the target, and at the same time, this armor will become a fragment that amplifies the power of the explosion. Just as Chen Ming thought, the fuel transport suddenly broke away from the fleet from the side away from the Gladiator. It adjusted its direction and aimed at the front of the pirate fleet, the Centurion, which had just dissipated all the radiation and reopened its shield. Chen Ming had noticed it in advance and had previously told Gamma B that the second priority target was it. The Gladiator, which had just pulled away the pirate ship with its maneuverability and completely paralyzed the mule, changed its target and prepared to deal with the fuel ship from the side. But what Chen Ming didn't expect was that the tail of this heavily modified fuel ship suddenly spurted out a large amount of red-orange tail flames, just like the Gladiator starting the plasma thruster. The surging flames pushed the fuel ship to produce an extremely exaggerated instantaneous acceleration, and it reached the fastest speed that could be achieved in hyperspace in less than 2 seconds. It crashed into the Centurion. Even if the Gladiator rushed back at the fastest speed, it would not have time to deal with it. The Centurion, which had just recovered, had no time to speed up and avoid it. Its firepower was not enough to instantly penetrate the ridiculously thick frontal armor, so it could only withstand the self-destruction attack. The fuel transport ship hit the Centurion's shield that had been activated in advance in an instant. Under the high-speed impact of the large mass entity, the radiation energy of the Centurion class increased instantly. Before Chen Ming could react, the radiation energy generated by the Centurion attack was close to the capacity limit. Fortunately, there was a trigger device on the Centurion class that he had specially installed before. It would be activated when the spacecraft's radiation energy was about to reach its limit, automatically shutting down the spacecraft's shield. Unless there are more powerful weapons that can instantly cause the Centurion class's radiation energy to overload, the Centurion class will never be overloaded by the shield. In addition, according to another design of Chen Ming, this trigger device will also activate the damping field device at the same time as it is triggered. The next moment when the Centurion class's hull was covered by the damping field, the modified drum-class fuel transport ship took the initiative to detonate itself. A ball of fire that was several hundred meters long suddenly appeared in space. Chen Ming became a little nervous when he saw this. His boss had warned him about the madness of Ludzwojing before, but he didn't expect that he would still be caught even though he was prepared. However, he immediately noticed that the Centurion class was not disconnected from the spacecraft he controlled. It had withstood this wave of explosion. The three-dimensional imaging of the panel also showed the situation of the Centurion class in the fireball. Its front armor mixed with Bayun steel had been completely damaged, revealing a hull structure covered with a lot of melting marks and impact cracks. Although the armor in other directions did not suffer the damage of the self-explosion head-on, it also suffered a lot of damage. In addition, the internal equipment of the Centurion class also suffered many minor damages due to the impact of the explosion, and it may crash directly after running for a while. But at least the Centurion is still running. As long as it is not destroyed instantly, Chen Ming can rescue it. Chen Ming immediately chose to repair on the panel. A large amount of materials in the storage compartment of the iron ore melted into liquid, flowed into Chen Ming's palm, and disappeared in Chen Ming's eyes. After consuming a considerable amount of mental power, these disappeared metal liquids appeared in the Centurion cabin in the fireball. The damage to the hull, armor, and weapons of the spacecraft was quickly repaired. At this time, the damping equipment just stopped due to the impending overload, and the fireball also dissipated. The fuel transport ship was self-exploded without any wreckage left. But the Centurion class appeared in front of everyone, and everyone who was not human on the battlefield without any damage. On the Mule class, all the frigates protecting it had been penetrated by the Gladiator class, and the engine had been paralyzed. The pirate leader looked at the scene numbly. Feeling the atmosphere of despair in the spaceship, he slumped in his chair. He knew very well that even a destroyer or even a cruiser would at least suffer some damage after being hit by the self-destruct ship modified by Ludzwojing. There was only one possibility for the military ship in front of him to be unscathed. Psychic. The pirate leader silently recited the name of the psychic, which he once thought was just a legend. At the same time, he also used the remaining power after the ship's engine was destroyed to use sensors to look at the scene outside. All the ships belonging to him were now like the Mule-class ships he was in, with their engines destroyed and paralyzed in space, completely losing the ability to resist. Moreover, There was even a Yuhui frigate wandering on the edge of the battlefield on the opposite side, without actually attacking them. They were completely defeated before they even fully exerted their strength. The pirate leader was almost left with despair in his heart at this time. But he didn't want to die yet. He tried again to send a communication request using his personal terminal that he could still start. This time, the communication was connected. The pirate leader asked in a trembling voice, "What do you want? We can give you everything on our ship. I still have 3 million in my savings card. As long as you let us live, these are all yours." Chen Ming relied on a simple text-to-speech conversion device installed on the spacecraft and said in a very mechanical tone, "Don't you want to die? Yes, as long as you are willing to let us go, we can do anything for you." Well, Chen Ming responded meaningfully, but did not rush to give a definite answer. Instead, he hung up the communication directly. The pirate leader felt nervous when he heard the busy tone, and the atmosphere in the captain's room suddenly stagnated. But what they were worried about did not happen afterwards. The ships surrounding them did not open fire to destroy them. Instead, a period of time passed quietly. After more than 10 minutes, the iron ore suddenly approached from the other end of the hyperspace channel. It flew directly to the rear of the mule class and aimed the hatch at the engine nozzle of the mule. This allowed Chen Ming to reach out and press on the hull of the mule class ship to control it. The whole process went very smoothly and was not noticed by anyone. After all, the pirates were now completely blind. After the engine was paralyzed and the power accumulated in the power grid was exhausted, most of the equipment on their spacecraft had completely stopped working. The sensors and external cameras were naturally the same. Before the battle just now broke out, their porthole shields must have been opened. After the battle ended and the engine was paralyzed, these shields would naturally not be closed again. Chen Ming deliberately left them here for a while, just to be able to come here in person and control this destroyer-class mule class. Even if it is a merchant ship, a destroyer is still very valuable. After controlling this mule class, Chen Ming took the initiative to send a communication request along the previous communication code. The communication was connected almost instantly, and the pirate leader's anxious voice came out from it. "Hello?" Chen Ming's goal at this time was to keep the pirate leader alive so that he could bring the person to the boss, so he had already thought of a set of words on the way here just now. Chen Ming brewed a little bit of how to perform and said, "I won't kill you." The pirate leader said with a little excitement, "Really? Why should I lie to you? If I really want to kill you, why do I waste so much time talking to you? I just need you to do one thing. I know you probably don't believe my words, but believe it or not, if you don't believe it, I will kill you." The pirate leader had no other choice at this time and could only say, "Believe it. Of course I believe it. Just say it." "Are there other people around you now?" "No. I just asked them to disperse to prepare for the funeral, and I am staying in the room now." "Okay, soothing your men. Don't let them cause any movement." "Okay, what about it? I don't care about it. I can get your bounty with your head." So since you are still alive, it is naturally that some special people have special requirements. Chen Ming has directly attacked him, showing a considerable hostility, and the probability is the latter, but he still has such a trace of luck. A lot of his bounty increased when he was doing these things. After he had a certain reputation or notoriety, some people did come to him to do things. Some were sincere, and some were malicious. Whether it was sincere money or malicious threats, he would selectively accept them to avoid offending people he shouldn't offend. Under such circumstances, he was still defeated by someone who came to his door and almost crushed him. There must be something wrong with what he usually did. So, the first thing he thought of was the small caravan he had just robbed 2 days ago. When he chose the target, he specifically confirmed with the intelligence dealer who had been cooperating with him for a long time that this caravan should not have a backer. And the intelligence dealer has always been a trustworthy person to him, and there has never been any problem. So after thinking about it, the pirate leader temporarily ruled out this possibility and did not think of the problem with the intelligence dealer. Unable to come up with a conclusion, he finally couldn't help asking, "Who is that big shot?" Chen Ming said with full doubt in his tone, "Do you think I will tell you?" The pirate leader also knew that he asked a stupid question and fell silent. Chen Ming suddenly felt that he had overacted and said in a slightly relaxed tone, "Are you worried about your own safety in the future? Then you might as well worry about whether you will die now if you don't cooperate. That big shot has already made it clear before arranging the task. It's best if the person can be brought back alive. If not, the worst that can happen is to change another one." Change another one? The pirate leader keenly caught the key words in Chen Ming's words. He seemed to understand what Chen Ming meant. The big shot Chen Ming mentioned needs a pirate like him who has a certain bounty, has been a glove for others, has experience in doing things, and has been in the marginal star field for many years. There are not too many people like him in the marginal star field, and there are not too few people, so it seems that there is no problem in changing one. Several thoughts flashed through the pirate leader's mind. Could it be that there was something special that he needed to do? Then there was no need to attack him directly, right? They even used Yu Hui's ship. Wait, Yu Hui's ship? The pirate leader seemed to realize the key to the problem. He knew that many forces had been acquiring Yu Hui's AI cores, and it was easy to guess where these acquired cores were used. For example, the AI core in front of him was originally installed on ships to control unmanned ships. But it is impossible for such Yu Hui ships to be used casually, even in the marginal star field. Not to mention using them against a little pirate like him. 1 or 2 professional military destroyers and 2 or 3 frigates would be enough to destroy the small fleet he brought with him. There was no need for this unknown force to use Yu Hui's ship to find him within the scope of the human empire. There should even be a psychic on that Centurion-class ship that looked like a military ship. Using the Afterglow ship and the psychic to find him, could it be that there is really a special purpose? Or is it foreshadowing something? The thoughts in the pirate leader's mind were gradually led to the ditch because of Chen Ming's ship configuration and words, as well as his own luck in his heart. He asked hesitantly, "Can you tell me more? At least, let me know a little bit about the situation." Chen Ming knew at a glance that the pirate leader had been tricked, so he naturally would not tell the truth, but instead planned to lead the pirate leader deeper into the ditch. "I can only tell you that the big shot has a good temper and is very generous." Although the pirate leader had some problems with his thinking, his brain was still intact. He asked, "Why did you attack us? As long as you contact us, we will definitely be willing to help you. Why do you do this?" Chen Ming asked back with preparation, "You just finished a deal, right? Well, so you are planning to repair the spacecraft and sell the stolen goods?" "Yes." "What will you do after selling the stolen goods?" "Repair the spacecraft, replenish supplies, spend money, and then go out to work again." Chen Ming suddenly sneered and said, "So, do you think the big shot will wait until you finish spending money before looking for you? Can you call back the people under your command after they spend the money? But your sudden attack on us is a bit too much, and how do you think we will that help you?" Chen Ming had read the information of the pirate leader before. His logic of action is to make decisions based on whether he can be provoked or not. He would provoke those he could afford to provoke and avoid those he couldn't afford to provoke. However, he had a problem only with his boss. He didn't seem to think that his boss was someone he couldn't afford to offend, or rather, he didn't realize it. This was different from his previous performance. Chen Ming felt that it was not his personality that had changed, but that there was something wrong with his intelligence. So Chen Ming now said with a look of knowing him very well, "You are a man who knows the times, aren't you? If you don't do it, you will die. If you do it, you may not die. This is the simplest truth. Of course, I can't be sure whether you will deliberately sabotage when you do things in the future. So I don't know if you noticed, except for the ship that rushed up and self-destructed, did any of you die?" The leader was obviously stunned for a moment. It was not until this time that he realized that in his fleet, except for the self-destructing ship, the other spacecrafts basically only had their engines and weapons destroyed, and at most only a few people were injured on the ship, and absolutely no one died. He even took the initiative to start the self-destructing ship. In other words, there was actually no life-and-death conflict between him and Chen Ming. Or, he was not worthy of having such a conflict with Chen Ming. 2 destroyers and 6 escorts were defeated by 1 destroyer and 2 escorts, and the defeat was humiliating, as it only destroyed the spacecraft's operating ability. It was not a life-and-death battle. What's more, even if many people really died, as long as the benefits were enough in the end, the contradiction could also be written off. So do you understand? The pirate leader didn't dare to say more now, and said honestly, I understand, but you have such ability, why do you want us to do things? Some things must be done by people with the right identity. You are the closest and the most suitable person, that's all. Okay, you've asked enough questions, it's time to tell me your ideas. If you do it, follow me. If you don't do it, you will die here. The pirate leader answered without hesitation, do it? Very good. After Chen Ming's words fell, the engine of the mule-class destroyer where the pirate leader was suddenly restored to normal and began to power the entire spacecraft. Some equipment on the spacecraft also began to restart. In the shocked eyes of the pirate leader, Chen Ming's voice continued to sound, I restored your ship, but the control of the spacecraft is in my hands. I will secretly send you to where you should go, and it's none of my business afterwards. Tell your men on other ships to be quiet, and then I will restore other ships and send them all away. The pirate leader calmed down his accelerated heartbeat and said, I see. Can I ask you one last question? Go ahead. Is what that big shot wants me to do related to you, Hui? Chen Ming's mouth twitched slightly. He didn't know how the pirate leader came up with such an idea just now, so he simply said something repetitive. You can think so? The pirate leader's thoughts in his mind became more complicated. He thanked Chen Ming, hesitated a little after pressing the terminal, and still closed the communication. The pirate leader walked out of his room with the terminal and grabbed the unskilled maintenance technician who could only do some simple maintenance work on the ship and asked, What happened? The maintenance technician said with sweat on his forehead, I don't know. The ship's engine suddenly recovered, but our control over the ship was completely lost. Is there any equipment on the ship that can still be used? No, nothing can move. We are still trying to solve it. The pirate leader's hand trembled unconsciously, and he said, Don't do it. Call everyone to the captain's room. I have something to say. Although the maintenance technician was very confused, he still did it. A few minutes later, the pirate leader roughly explained the situation Chen Ming said to his men in the captain's room, and notified other ships through the communication channel. After the explanation, everyone on the mule class could feel that the ship suddenly started to move, but there was no one on the bridge. With the leader's advance vaccination, no one dared to say anything about it. The pirate leader suddenly sighed, with a complex meaning in his eyes. He knew that he would not die for the time being, but it was not certain after he finished helping the big man. He could only hope that the big man would take a liking to him and continue to assign him other tasks. At least he could live a little longer. If his performance was really appreciated, he might live a better life than being a pirate. The leader sat on the chair in the captain's room in confusion, imagining the possible future. He had no idea that he was actually walking into the deep pit that Chen Ming had dug. Chen Ming could roughly guess what the pirate leader was thinking, but he didn't care at all. Anyway, all he said was nonsense. He just wanted to hold the pirate leader back until he could hand the pirates over to the boss intact and alive. The rest of the matter had nothing to do with him. As long as the pirate leader could come back, it would be fine. It didn't matter whether he was alive or not. If Chen Ming hadn't been worried that the other people on the pirate ship would choose to drag the pirate leader down after knowing that they were going to die. Or the pirate leader might have realized that it was wrong that he was the only one to do the work. Chen Ming even wanted to leave the pirate leader alone. Otherwise, Chen Ming would have taken action directly and would not have said so much to him. Now they could only let the pirates on the mule-class ship that had already set off live for a while longer. But the pirates on other pirate ships were not so lucky. The mule class was sent away, which meant that the communication between the pirate leader and the pirates on other ships was disconnected. The remaining people could no longer affect the pirate leader, but they would affect what Chen Ming was going to do next, so they all had to die. Chen Ming controlled the iron ore and controlled all the remaining pirate ships one by one. He could observe the situation of these pirate ships through the three-dimensional imaging of the panel. Although he could not see the people on the ship, he could see the items on the ship and even saw a complete set of protective clothing moving inside the ship in the three-dimensional imaging. Originally, Chen Ming wanted to replace the iron ore with an electromagnetic javelin, relying on the high penetration of the weapon to kill one by one through three-dimensional imaging. But he thought about it carefully and found a more useful method: disassembly. This is the new ability added to the panel after Chen Ming controlled the refractive level and his mental power broke through the limit. It has an effect on any component on the ship, and the same is true for the ship itself. Chen Ming set his sights on a most ordinary frigate. He first unloaded its weapons, and then chose to disassemble the ship itself. The frigate suddenly began to melt from the connection between the various structures of the ship. Countless liquids composed of various materials escaped and approached the iron ore where Chen Ming was. Part of the liquid material directly penetrated the hull and flowed into the storage compartment of the iron ore, condensing into a solid again, becoming the most convenient shape for each material to use. There is no shortage of precious metals and high-grade metal materials in it, and these materials that should have been scattered throughout the spacecraft were all gathered together by the panels after disassembly. It made Chen Ming, who had a little obsessive-compulsive disorder, very comfortable. However, the storage compartment of the iron ore was soon completely filled up, and the remaining space on the spacecraft, such as the engine compartment and the central aisle, was almost filled with materials. Only a small path was left for Chen Ming to pass through. The remaining extra materials were all condensed around the iron ore. When a frigate was completely dismantled, Chen Ming roughly estimated that the cost of dismantling a complete frigate was about twice that of transforming a frigate. It was acceptable. For Chen Ming at present, it was not a problem to dismantle all the frigates. As for the pirates who could only wave their limbs helplessly in space with fear and despair in their eyes because their ships were dismantled, without the protection of the ship, they would soon die in space. So Chen Ming very kindly gave everyone another shot so that they could end this pain quickly. Their bodies would then be affected by the gravity well of the large star and drift into the stars of the normal cosmic environment under gravity. There was no need for Chen Ming to bother to deal with them. Chen Ming was not in a hurry to dismantle the remaining 5 frigates of the pirates, but first went to the Mule class. Chen Ming did not intend to dismantle the Mule class, which was controlled by the refraction class from the beginning. Although it was just a cargo ship forcibly converted into an armed ship, the conversion was extremely rough, and there were various damages. But it was a destroyer after all, and it would not be wrong to drive it back. Since the Mule class could not be dismantled, Chen Ming chose to do it himself. He compared the protective clothing that appeared on the three-dimensional imaging and completely killed all the pirates inside the spacecraft. After confirming that there were no living people on the Mule, Chen Ming personally went up and threw all the bodies into the hyperspace channel. There was a lot of cargo in the cargo hold of the Mule at this time, almost filling it up, but this had little impact. After all, there was still a lot of space in other parts of the spacecraft. Chen Ming once again controlled the remaining 5 frigates and dismantled them all into the most basic materials. All the space inside the Mule was basically filled up. But even so, there were still a lot of materials overflowing. In the end, Chen Ming could only use the refraction class, after putting the Gladiator, Glimmer, and Centurion in first, and then relying on the electromagnetic device and his own movement to stuff all the materials into the capture cabin. At this point, the only dead pirate bodies were left on the battlefield. Chen Ming reconfirmed that there were no survivors left, and no pirates were wearing protective clothing with recording functions. Then it was almost time to go back. Chen Ming slightly controlled the speed of the Mule-class ship that had left in advance so that his ship could catch up. He brought out 5 ships this time: the Refraction, the Glimmer, the Fighter Kai, the Centurion, and the Iron Ore. He also brought back 2 more Mule-class destroyers. The fleet, consisting of 3 destroyers and 1 escort, accelerated to the fastest speed again. Under Chen Ming's control, they did not return directly to the pirate space station, but went to the dark cemetery first. After parking several ships and leaving a considerable amount of materials, Chen Ming returned to the galaxy where the space station was located with 2 mules, the Iron Ore and the Centurion. In the process of jumping out of the hyperspace channel and gradually approaching the space station, Chen Ming took out the terminal and prepared to contact the boss in advance so that he could hand the person over. Although he had revealed a little too much information to the pirate leader before. However, during the previous period of interaction, Chen Ming felt that the boss should be able to give a certain degree of trust, just like Lao Wu and the factory director. Unlike the factory director Lao Wu, the boss does not belong to Cinda or the military. Although Chen Ming is not sure which faction he belongs to, it is definitely not a force that is hostile to Chen Ming. Therefore, Chen Ming did not care too much about the exposure of his own psychic power. He opened the terminal without hesitation and began to contact the boss. It was almost evening. The boss must have just got off work and was very idle. He picked up the phone immediately after Chen Ming called and asked with a slightly surprised tone, "Xiaomu, what's the matter?" Chen Ming subconsciously glanced at the mule class that was heading to the space station in the galaxy and said, "I brought the person back." "So soon? Where is it? I'll arrange for someone to pick it up right away." "It's still on the way. It will take about 10 minutes to reach the space station. It's just that there are a little too many people." The boss didn't understand what Chen Ming meant at once and asked, "What do you mean by a little too many people?" "Well, I just brought the entire pirate ship was brought back, with about 30 people on board, all alive." Question mark. The boss on the other end of the phone was even more confused and asked, "What did you do?" "It's a trick, and I have some skills. Not only is their spaceship under my control, the pirate leader now thinks that I'm looking for him because you want him to do something special, and thinks that I brought him here to discuss something serious." As Chen Ming said, he sent the photos taken by the Iron Ore of the Mule class in the internal environment of the galaxy where the pirate space station is located. Looking at the lonely Mule class ship in the photo, the boss couldn't help but praise. "You can do it. Tell me how you fooled people like this when you have time." Chen Ming didn't wait and said directly on the phone, "Beat him up and break his legs first, then tell him that I could have killed you but didn't, which shows that I am very special to you. Finally, connect his legs, and he will believe what I say." The boss was silent for a moment and changed the topic that sounded a bit wrong. "Let's not talk about this. When the time comes, you can go directly to the patrol team's dock to enter the space station. Tell me the type of ship, and I will let you go. Wasn't that dock dismantled last time? Has it been repaired?" "Not so fast. We just reconnected the broken part with a frame and built a small thing inside that can temporarily stop the ship. You can just park the ship there, and I will arrange the rest." "Okay." Chen Ming agreed, and suddenly remembered the mule the cargo mounted on the subclass said, "The batch of materials they robbed is now hanging outside, and some are on another cargo ship. Do you want me to wait a while?" Before Chen Ming finished speaking, the boss said directly, "No, if you can take it, just take it. That batch of materials is used to supply small colonies. If it was robbed, the colony would have prepared a new batch of materials for transportation. There is no need to send this batch of materials over. It is useless for me to take it now. If you can take it, take it. If you can't take it, I will have someone send it to the repair factory for you. You can sell it to others or keep it for yourself. This is considered an extra thing, and it does not count with the other benefits I promised you before. Wait until I finish the things at hand, and I will come to you in 2 days." "Okay." Chen Ming agreed again, and directly controlled the separation of the cargo hold mounted on the mule class through the panel, and handed it over to another mule class of his own. Then Chen Ming followed the boss instructions and took only the pirate mule class into the small temporary dock belonging to the patrol team in the space station. The layout of the temporary dock looked a bit messy. Not only were there many combat ships docked, but there were also a lot of materials piled up to be used to repair the space arm later. However, it seemed that an empty space was barely cleared here for the mule class to dock. Chen Ming did not let the iron ore go down, but only controlled the mule class to land on it. Then he saw several people near the mule class waving at his iron ore, which should be the people arranged by the boss. Chen Ming opened the hatch of the mule class and returned the control authority to the spacecraft itself. The boss should have contacted the pirate leader in advance through the pirate communication code given by Chen Ming, following the nonsense that Chen Ming had said before. The professional military ships around made the pirate leader believe Chen Ming's words, so the boss's people took most of the pirates on the ship away from the temporary dock smoothly. There were still a few guards on the ship, and Chen Ming estimated that they would die first. But this had nothing to do with him. Chen Ming had to go somewhere else next. The pirate's mule-class ship could be left here, because the boss would never be interested in such things. and he could just come back to get them later. Chen Ming quickly controlled the iron ore and took the Centurion and another Mule-class ship into the open dock of the Space Arm number 15 of the space station. At the same time, Chen Ming was also checking the things that the Mule-class ship brought. The Mule-class ship was equipped with 3 external cargo holds robbed by pirates, 2 destroyer-class ships, and 1 escort-class ship, plus the supplies in the cargo hold of Chen Ming's Mule-class ship itself, which was a considerable amount. Basically, they are all kinds of daily necessities and packaged foods, and some supplies for spacecraft, which account for a relatively small proportion. These things are basically worthless in the prosperous star field, but in the marginal star field, this amount can still be sold at a relatively good price. Chen Ming originally planned to find a place to sell them, but he suddenly hesitated before he really planned to do so. The image of Yuhui colony flashed through his mind, and at the same time, he somehow associated it with the small colony related to the boss. After thinking for a moment, Chen Ming suddenly didn't want to sell this batch of goods, so he simply stored them in the repair factory. Anyway, the repair factory has a lot of extra space, so it's not a big problem to temporarily store these supplies. Although Chen Ming didn't know what specific use he would have for keeping these things, he just wanted to keep them, always thinking that he might need them later. This strange premonition was just like the panic he felt in the space arm before. At that time, this premonition saved his life, and now this premonition is not so strong, but Chen Ming thinks it's always right to believe it. After parking the Centurion at the dock, Chen Ming continued to control the iron ore and the mule to drive deep into the repair plant. Through the special unloading equipment in the repair plant, the cargo and the several cargo holds mounted on the mule and its own cargo hold were all removed and piled up in the open space on the side. After the cargo was unloaded, Chen Ming suddenly felt that the fatigue accumulated during the day surged into his brain. He had been repairing and dismantling ships since the afternoon, and the mental fatigue had begun to affect his thinking. After all, the 6 frigates he dismantled were comparable to many destroyers in terms of size, and the mental energy consumption of dismantling a destroyer was twice that of completely modifying a destroyer. So Chen Ming was not in a hurry to continue with the next thing, but went to the restaurant inside the space station and opened a private room to solve the problem of dinner. Now that he has money, he must prepare something good for food. After finishing the work, he returned to the iron ore and lay on the bed in the living cabin. Before falling asleep, Chen Ming habitually began to think and summarize his situation today. Doing so can help him find out the omissions and problems in his work, so as to avoid committing them again in the future. Thinking about it, Chen Ming suddenly remembered the situation when he first came to the pirate space station. And his thoughts at that time: return to the prosperous star field with a new identity and start a new life. Chen Ming seems to have been able to do this a long time ago, but this idea has faded a little for him now. There are many reasons. The most important thing is that Chen Ming's new life actually started when he set foot on the pirate space station. He never said that his new life must start from the prosperous star field. It's just because Chen Ming was on Reimu before, which was not even a wilderness, but a pure primitive world. So Chen Ming's first thought at the time was to return to the prosperous star field that he was familiar with in his memory. But for Chen Ming now, staying in the marginal star field would be more comfortable than going to the prosperous star field. After all, he couldn't accept that all the hard work he put into modifying the spacecraft during this period was scrapped. He couldn't accept the situation that the human empire had completely banned the Yuhui AI core. You should know that the management environment of the prosperous star field is much more stringent than that of the marginal star field. The patrol team patrolling in the galaxy may suddenly investigate any spacecraft at any time. Chen Ming couldn't resist yet, so he could only passively accept their scanning. Once the problem was found, the AI core in Chen Ming's hand would definitely not be saved. The 2 AI cores are Chen Ming's most important helpers now. Without them, his ability in spacecraft would at least regress by half. So Chen Ming thought it would be best to get an armed ship license first, to ensure that his identity was not just a civilian and no one would come to check him out. Only in this way could he have the basis to take the Yuhui AI core back. And there are many ways to obtain an armed ship license, and there is even a way to climb up all the way. This way can not only meet Chen Ming's needs to improve himself, but should also meet Chen Ming's idea of taking the Yuhui AI core back. Shinda Company has also been acquiring the Afterglow AI core. Since the official has not investigated them, there is no need to guess what it means. Although Chen Ming is not sure whether this road can be taken, its existence does make him less willing to go back. And if Chen Ming really chooses to return to the prosperous star field and stay away from the marginal star field, then he will lose the source of new Afterglow AI cores. Many of his abilities to control spacecraft are not easy to play in the prosperous star field. Just the point of contacting Afterglow's ship is basically impossible to do. But for Chen Ming, he has deeply experienced the convenience of owning and controlling two Afterglow AI cores. It is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. It is impossible to really let Chen Ming give up the idea of obtaining a new Yuhui AI core. And it is not only Chen Ming's own idea, but also the limitations of the reality that force him to obtain a new AI core to a certain extent. With the increase in the number of ships Chen Ming currently has, and the change in the types of ships, it is not enough for a refraction-class ship to carry 3 frigates. After all, 2 Mule-class ships must at least occupy a stable control position of Chen Ming's spaceship. If 2 mules are taken, then Chen Ming will not be able to control other spaceships. Even if there are more ships, he can't take them out. Even if the refraction is really transformed into a mobile small dock, at most 4 spaceships can be parked in it stably, and some of the combat effectiveness of the refraction will be lost. So Chen Ming thought about it, and simply delayed the transformation of the refraction. While ensuring his own combat capability, first solved the problem of the growing overall number of spaceships and the backward number of ship controls. And the best way to solve this problem is to find Yuhui and let Yuhui's AI assist him in the control of his ships. Chen Ming didn't expect to get the more advanced Beta Core or even Alpha Core that could control destroyers, but he had to get a few more Gamma-class AI cores so that he could control all the spacecrafts he had. Chen Ming had specifically asked Gamma A before whether there were any cases of Afterglow individuals going to explore planets together. Gamma A said that there were. Then on the Afterglow Information Exchange platform, those Afterglow individuals who summoned similar Afterglows to explore were the best targets for Chen Ming to capture. It seemed that he would have to prepare a robot that could explore the planet and use the name of Gamma AB to sneak in and cause trouble. And this robot could have another use. It was to help Chen Ming deal with some work that he couldn't do personally at risk. For example, recently, when controlling the pirate ship. If Chen Ming had one or more powerful combat robots at that time, after the pirate ship was paralyzed, he could directly jump on board and kill almost all the pirates. At least it could save Chen Ming a lot of time, plus a lot of nonsense with the pirate leader. Chen Ming was already preparing to do the first thing, not only through the Shinda Company, but also through his own ability. Both sides are going forward. As for the second thing, Chen Ming will have to wait until he finishes what he needs to do now before he can have time to do it. However, the preliminary preparations, such as preparing robots, can actually be done now. It shouldn't take too much time to do it later. Chen Ming gradually fell into a deep sleep while thinking constantly. When he woke up, it was the next day. The outside of the iron ore was already full of weapons that needed to be refurbished, which the factory director had sent over late at night. After Chen Ming moved them onto the ship, it took 5 minutes to complete the batch repair of weapons. After putting the refurbished goods back to their original positions, Chen Ming went straight to the side of the mule class that was parked in the repair shop yesterday. He planned to repair and modify the mule class. Because he had to transport people back as soon as possible at the dark cemetery, and because he had dismantled several ships before, Chen Ming didn't have the time and energy to do modification and repair. So it can only be left until now. Chen Ming opened the panel of the mule class. Spaceship panel. Ship name, none. Type, mule class armed merchant ship. Radiation capacity, 0/600. Radiation dissipation, 50. Fuel reserve, 37%. Port side weapon, light assault gun, small, *2. Starboard side weapon, light assault gun, small, *2. Top weapon, assault chain gun, medium. Tail weapon, Vulcan point defense gun, small. Armor, titanium alloy external armor. Engine, civilian customized destroyer engine. Built-in cabins, captain's cabin, engine cabin, bridge control cabin, weapon control cabin, living cabin *4, small cargo storage cabin *2. Important equipment: control system module operating, landing module operating, hyperspace channel system module operating, imitation gravity module operating, escort level radiation energy system operating, escort level full-width shield module operating. On the panel, Chen Ming immediately noticed the change in the weapon display, which appeared with the emergence of the disassembly function. It looks more convenient, but it has little impact on Chen Ming. Anyway, it is enough to open the panel with more detailed information when there is a problem. And looking at the overall panel of this Mule-class ship, Chen Ming feels that this is just an ordinary merchant ship that has been roughly modified by military forces. The most obvious place of the ship's rough modification is its radiation energy system. Although it is also a frigate-level radiation energy system, its radiation energy capacity and radiation energy dissipation are even worse than the Centurion with a relatively poor shield. So much so that Chen Ming even wanted to directly dismantle this radiation energy system and replace it with a destroyer-level radiation energy system. However, no matter how much he thought about it or complained about it, he still had to use this frigate-level radiation energy system. After all, Chen Ming couldn't afford a more advanced radiation energy system at the moment. So he should think about how to repair the Mule class as much as possible. And the transformation and modification of the ship has actually become Chen Ming's standard procedure before he officially uses the ship. As for the final transformation direction of the ship, it is determined by its use. The use of the Mule-class cargo ship is very simple. Carrying cargo. A 120-meter Mule-class ship has 2 small cargo storage compartments on its hull. Although it sounds small, the actual capacity of this special small cargo storage compartment is as large as 30 by 30 by 30. The interior is divided into 3 layers: upper, middle, and lower. The capacity of the first layer alone is dozens of times larger than that of the 5 by 5 by 5 storage compartment of the iron ore. Moreover, the size of the iron ore at the beginning was 33 meters long, 15 meters wide, and 7 meters high, and it was even smaller after the transformation. In other words, 6 iron ores can be directly stuffed into this complete cargo hold. The actual amount that can be carried is more than that of the larger refraction class. But think about it, after all, one is an electromagnetic ship for auxiliary combat, with a large number of electromagnetic or other types of equipment loaded inside. And the other is a special cargo ship. It would be strange if it could exceed it. Then in this case, Chen Ming's choice of transformation for the Mule class has actually been determined. If it is based on the content displayed on the panel, it is a few additional expanded cargo compartments. By removing the cabins that are redundant for Chen Ming, such as the captain's cabin and the living cabin, even the bridge control cabin and the weapon control cabin can be removed. Separate the equipment inside and place them in the corners of the hull, saving a lot of space in exchange for a larger cargo capacity. Chen Ming is not worried at all that he may not be able to use it in the future. After all, with Chen Ming's disassembly ability, as long as he can touch other people's spaceships, there is no chance that he will not be able to fill the storage compartment. Of course, to modify the spaceship on such a scale, the engine must also be modified in a matching way. So Chen Ming took out the professional book of Lude that was updated 30 years later. Although after Chen Ming knew what Lude's left path was, he found that the content of the book seemed to be a little deleted. But there are still many useful technologies on it. For example, the modification technology of the engine used by the self-destructing ship can definitely be adapted to the Mule class with more cargo compartments. In addition, there are many technologies in the Lude technical book that exchange certain risks for more powerful performance of the spaceship, and Chen Ming is also very happy to learn. After all, Chen Ming often does not need to take that risk personally. After thinking about the modification plan, Chen Ming directly began to operate various large-scale maintenance equipment in the repair shop. Although he was not able to use the panel in the repair shop, he could still use the engineering equipment in the repair shop at will. Chen Ming was not without experience in using these equipment, so it was not too difficult to modify them. In addition, there were several cargo holds unloaded by pirates from the caravan that could be used as a base, so the modification of expanded cargo hold did not take Chen Ming too much time. On the contrary, the reinforced bulkhead that Chen Ming prepared to modify in order to enhance the survivability of the Mule class and his favorite, heavy armor. These two modifications took him a lot of effort. Although the finished product still needed a few days to complete, Chen Ming had already drawn the entire mule class on the design drawing in advance. The mule class, which originally had a more layered design, became a lot fatter in Chen Ming's design, but its maneuverability did not decrease but increased. After all, this flame drive belonging to Lude Technology was at least paid for at the cost of the unstable temperature control system inside the spacecraft. At this point, the transformation ideas of the mule class have been completely planned. Once the ideas are planned, then the rest is just mechanical labor. Therefore, during the few days it takes to actually transform the mule class, Chen Ming is still thinking about the modification plan for another ship. Although he left a lot of materials in the dark cemetery, there are still many ordinary materials in the remaining materials that cannot be used up. So Chen Ming thought about completely transforming a spaceship based on the ideas of Lude Technology. Transform a self-destructing ship belonging to Chen Ming. Chen Ming never had this idea before. But after seeing Lude's self-destructing ship, Chen Ming suddenly found that Lude Technology is very suitable for him in many cases. Spaceships that do not require human control can undergo quite a lot of dangerous transformations. This naturally includes self-destructing spaceships. And as for the self-destructing ship, he only needs to figure out how to detonate all the fuel stored in different locations inside the ship at once, and how to maximize the power of the explosion. The rest of the technology for the self-destructing ship is in Lude's technical book. However, it is a bit of a loss to buy a fuel ship to modify it just to try this idea. So the object that Chen Ming is going to transform into a self-destructing ship is the Sentinel-class ship that is gathering dust in the repair shop. After the mule is modified, it will be the Sentinel's turn. The transformation of the mule class had just been carried out for 2 days. The boss contacted Chen Ming and asked him to go over. Perhaps the boss had already dealt with the pirates and wanted to return the pirates who could be exchanged for bounties to him. After agreeing to go, Chen Ming first returned to the iron ore and made some preparations. He planned to take a transport robot he had bought before. The transport robot looks a bit like a spider, the size of a person, with a strong load capacity, can adapt to a variety of complex environments, and can also receive simple commands. However, after Chen Ming got the robot, he tried it and found that the robot could not be directly controlled through the panel. However, he didn't expect much at the beginning, so it was not a big problem. Chen Ming bought a total of 3 robots. Now only this standard all-terrain transport spider-type mechanical body has been delivered. The other 2 exploration robots and guard robots are on the way. In fact, Chen Ming also wanted to buy a professional combat robot, but he searched online and found none for sale, and there was no place to sell such things inside the space station, so he had to give up temporarily. Chen Ming plans to learn some knowledge about mechanical transformation if he has the chance. Maybe he can transform some ordinary mechanical bodies into mechanical bodies that can be used for combat. When buying the robot, Chen Ming also bought a set of lightweight exoskeleton armor, which can be worn with a light protective suit to slightly guarantee his combat effectiveness. After all, although Chen Ming can control the spacecraft, his own combat effectiveness is a bit low. If necessary, he can also modify it, and it won't be too difficult to modify things like armor plates. In fact, Chen Ming wanted to buy heavy power armor at first, but this thing, like the combat robot, has nowhere to sell, so he can only settle for the next best thing. Overall, the things Chen Ming bought are a little expensive. The transport robot cost 400,000, the guard robot that has not yet arrived cost 600,000, and the exploration robot cost 700,000. This is just the purchase money, and subsequent maintenance will also cost a lot. Chen Ming's total assets of more than 40 million before now only have a little over 30 million left. It's spent quickly, but at least the things he bought are still solid. Robots and exoskeleton armor can indeed save Chen Ming a lot of trouble and can also protect his safety, and the future plans have also been settled. Speaking of which, Chen Ming rarely sees that few people buy this kind of robot at the pirate space station. But if you think about it, it is understandable. Although the efficiency of manpower is definitely not as good as that of machinery, the cost is always lower than that of machinery. Moreover, if you buy or show this kind of thing at the pirate space station, you may be targeted by some people. After all, if you have money to buy this kind of thing, then the buyer must be worth a lot. Who doesn't like fat sheep? Chen Ming doesn't care about this problem. He often hangs around the maintenance plant, and the pirates can find out his identity with a little investigation before they want to take action. If they are not stupid, they can't really attack an employee of a pirate space station. Even pirate space stations belonging to different forces are connected to each other. If the attack on the pirate space station employees is done, unless the attackers never go to most of the pirate space stations in the future, they will be picked out sooner or later. Even if there are really young people, they must be newcomers who don't know the rules and can't beat Chen Ming. So Chen Ming himself was not too worried about safety. He started the transport robot on the iron ore and debugged it briefly. Chen Ming took it to the number 2 space arm. Although the number 2 space wall was affected during the first 2 afterglow attacks, there was no damage inside, and various factories here were still running. After seeing the afterglow factory covering 1/5 of the planet when he went to the afterglow colony before, Chen Ming no longer felt the shock of the roaring industrial equipment. So Chen Ming did not stay outside for long and walked straight into the boss's store. As soon as he entered the store, Chen Ming saw that the skipped work old Wu was squatting in the corner smoking, holding a terminal in his hand and watching the video with a happy face. When he saw Chen Ming coming in, he said hello and waved his hand to indicate that he should leave him alone. Chen Ming really didn't bother to care about him. The boss was already waiting for him. In the room inside the hardware store, next to the boss, there were several metal boxes that looked like coffins stacked together. Chen Ming looked carefully and asked the boss, "Are these the pirates from before?" The boss nodded, took out the terminal and scanned a code on the corner of a box and showed it to Chen Ming. The result of the scan was the pirate's information and his bounty. Are they dead? The others are dead, and the leader should be dead soon. Oh, Chen Ming responded, not knowing whether the pirate leader would think of Chen Ming's lies before he died. Will he have a deep hatred for him, but he is going to die. So what does it matter whether he hates him or not? Right? The boss put down the terminal, patted a metal coffin on the top, and said to Chen Ming, "I talked to this guy, and he said something interesting about you." What? The boss's expression suddenly became serious, but with obvious curiosity in his eyes, he said you attacked him with 2 UA ships. Yeah. Chen Ming did not deny it, and directly explained with the excuse he had thought of before. That was the remote control system I installed on the Yuhui ship I robbed. Is that so? The boss's expression did not change at all and continued. He also said that one of your centurions took the self-explosion of a drum fuel ship, and it was not affected at all. No harm. That's because I modified the Centurion with special armor and damping devices. Then how did you control their spacecraft? The virus program was transmitted when communicating with them. Also, their engine has been destroyed by you, but it suddenly recovered in a blink of an eye and was repaired in an instant. That's because they saw it wrong. I just asked my ship, the Afterglow, to paralyze their engines with electromagnetic pulses, but it didn't damage them. The boss had a playful look in his eyes and asked in a meaningful tone, "Really? I think it should be true." Chen Ming's words should have made the boss unable to hold back, and the serious expression on his face instantly turned back to that lazy look. "Xiaomu, do you think I'm a good person?" Chen Ming said without thinking too much, "I think so." The boss really never cheated him, but instead provided him with help in many ways. But no matter what, Chen Ming had some concerns in his heart. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Chen Ming planned to ask directly, "But I want to know, when I just came to the space station, I had nothing and knew nothing, but you already had good intentions towards me. Why?" I never believe in good intentions without reason, and it is difficult to convince myself to accept it with peace of mind. The boss was a little surprised by Chen Ming's words and explained, "My kindness to you is not without reason." Why is that? Well, The boss did not answer immediately, but thought about it for a while and said, "Let me tell you this first. I am a psychic." Chen Ming nodded calmly and said, "Oh? Question mark. What's your attitude? Aren't you surprised?" Chen Ming shook his head and said, "I don't need to guess that you have a special identity. There are only a few possibilities for your specific identity. You said it yourself, and your performance also proves that you are not from the military or Shinda company. Among the remaining possibilities, Shinda Company respects you so much and arranges you in such a place. You must not be a senior executive of other competing companies. So basically, it's an official person, a certain important the three options of the members of the forces or the individual who have a special identity. You are not like officials at all, so you can call the first one. I guess the person who can pay attention to the company. The boss clapped his hand after listening to Chen Ming's idea. Your brain is pretty good. Although the results of the guess are a bit wrong, the overall thinking is indeed right. Said, this is not something I can understand. Indeed. Can you understand another thing? What happened? The spiritual energy of the professional training can feel the spiritual energy of the other spiritual power. The face under the helmet of Chen Ming was tightened for a moment. The boss's words not only surprised and shocked Chen Ming, but also made him completely understand the situation of his panel. This panel is the embodiment of his psychic power, but it appeared in his mind in a way that he could understand. Chen Ming had previously lied that he was a psychic, but he didn't expect it to be true. If the panel is a manifestation of psychic power, then he did not go to the military outpost at the beginning. It was indeed the most correct choice he made. Chen Ming took a deep breath, calmed down his emotions, and looked at the boss again. And the boss, seeing that Chen Ming's body suddenly froze because of what he said just now, showed a smile on his face as if he had succeeded in joking. I knew from the moment I saw you that it would not be wrong to have a good relationship with you. Aren't you afraid that I am a bad person? I am a psychic. This reason left Chen Ming speechless. And at this time, Chen Ming suddenly realized the reason why Lao Wu and the factory director were so nice to him. It should be because of the boss's psychic power. Chen Ming didn't have any special feelings about this. The communication between people is to understand the general personality of people through some means, and then be willing to spend energy to get along and maintain with the right methods. It's just that the boss and his friends replaced the means of understanding with faster psychic power. And the relationship between people is two-way. During this period, Chen Ming could also feel that whether it was the boss Lao Wu or the factory director, they were people who could be trusted to a certain extent, and there was no problem in getting along for a long time. So Chen Ming didn't care about using psychic power to know whether he was a good person, and he didn't intend to dwell on this. It's better to say that if the boss is a psychic, Chen Ming may have many questions that can be answered. I heard that the military has the ability to detect psychics. Is that what they rely on? Almost, but there are more professional means. You don't have to worry about them. The first time I saw you, I blocked your psychic fluctuations. No one will notice it until your psychic fluctuations exceed a certain limit. Just don't tell others that you have psychic powers, and don't tell others what kind of abilities your psychic powers have. I'm not stupid. After Chen Ming finished speaking, he paused and took the initiative to bring up a topic that might be unpleasant. Boss, since you want to make friends with a psychic like me, do you want to get something from me? The boss did not show any discomfort because of Chen Ming's question. Instead, he said quite frankly, being friends with a psychic is the biggest benefit in itself. Of course, I did have the idea of pursuing other interests at the beginning, and I still have it now, but interests and interpersonal relationships are not necessarily inseparable. The boss said, and stretched out his hand to Chen Ming. Make friends? Chen Ming briefly considered it, put his hand on the helmet, took off the helmet, and put it aside so that the boss could see his face. Then he also extended his hand and shook it. Chen Ming. The boss showed a satisfied smile on his face. Wuan. He suddenly patted Chen Ming's shoulder and said, I almost forgot the favor I promised you to bring the person back to me. I can't think of anything suitable for you for the time being. Why don't you tell me yourself? Chen Ming said very straightforwardly, I want to know something. No problem, ask. What exactly is a psychic? Good question. The boss repeated Chen Ming's question and answered, it is a person who affects reality with his own will. There are many different types of psychics. It is difficult to explain them in a few words. They are probably some, it is better for you not to know too much, and don't try to learn psychic power. Why? Because you are a naturally awakened psychic, not awakened by other means. Naturally awakened psychics should not be exposed to these systematic things. Although systematic learning can indeed make your psychic power progress faster, It will also limit the upper limit of your ability development. Chen Ming was silent for a moment, digested what the boss said, and asked, "Do you mean to let me explore it myself?" "Yes. How did you get here before? How do you do it now? If you are really interested, when you reach the upper limit of your self-development in the future, I can help you contact a professional institution for a physical examination to determine the specific situation of your own psychic power." Okay. Oh, by the way, although you should not learn systematic psychic power, there is still a sentence you need to know. Psychic is a person who affects reality with will, and psychic power is just a tool to affect reality. That's it. The boss reached out and patted Chen Ming's shoulder. It was unknown who had infected whom with this habit, him or Lao Wu. Practice psychic energy well. When you reach a certain level, you will understand psychic energy yourself. Then come to me. Chen Ming thanked the boss and said, "I see. I have another question. Just tell me, what is a spiritual stone?" The boss raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Chen Ming and asked, "Do you have it with you?"
No.
"Oh, that's right. I have one here too." The boss took out a stone from his pocket. It was covered with patterns like Chen Ming's spiritual stone, but it was not a twisted pattern like Chen Ming's whispering spiritual stone, but some water patterns that looked very comfortable. Chen Ming said this directly, "This is not the same as mine. It's normal. There are different types of spiritual stones." The boss held the spirit stone in his hand and said, "Since you want to know the effect of the spirit stone, I can show it to you now." As the boss spoke, an invisible thing appeared on his body that Chen Ming was very familiar with. It was so familiar that it seemed as if the fluctuation of spiritual energy had always existed beside him and accompanied him at any time. But Chen Ming could not control the fluctuation of spiritual energy by himself. This might be the disadvantage of self-awakening without systematic learning. Chen Ming did not think about this for too long, because the spirit stone in the boss's hand suddenly changed. The pattern on it lit up, and the warm white light enveloped the 3 meters around the spirit stone. And Chen Ming, who was wrapped in the white light, only felt a gentle and stable feeling rising from his heart. Originally, his anxiety about the possible development in the future and the unknown dangers he would face were all swept away. The whole person was full of unprecedented vitality. However, this feeling suddenly dissipated, and the boss withdrew the spiritual energy fluctuations and once again became the lazy, ordinary person who looked like he was approaching middle age. The boss stuffed the spirit stone back into his pocket and said, "This is the effect of the spirit stone. My spirit stone is gentle, which can give people this gentle and comfortable feeling after being activated. Generally speaking, the stronger the psychic fluctuations, the better the effect and the larger the range. And it does not have to be activated by psychics. Some special designs or materials with some energy properties can also be activated. This is actually the basis for the development of psychic weapons." The boss suddenly coughed and said, "I'm getting off topic. It's useless for you to know this for the time being. What is the effect of your stone?" "Whisper. Whisper. No wonder you didn't bring it with you. You can touch the whispering stone occasionally when you go back. It's good for you. Anything else?" Chen Ming thought for a while and said, "Yes, you go up the Luddite church I mentioned last time." "Oh, this one. It's a bit complicated to explain. I have to start from many years ago." The boss picked up the terminal and clicked a few times. He sent Chen Ming several books related to Lud, organized his words and said, "The Luddite church and Luddite left path are different. The Luddite church is really a normal church. It was a church established by the imperial government during the period of technological explosion before entering the space age because a large number of people were unemployed and needed social stability. You should know it, right? The period of technological explosion is similar to the period after several industrial revolutions. The productivity has made leaps and bounds, leading to the unemployment of ordinary people. Chen Ming obviously knows the history of both worlds, and he is very clear about the negative effects of changes brought about by technological innovation. Seeing Chen Ming nodded, the boss continued to explain. The original intention of establishing this church is to use a virtual god to gradually and peacefully integrate the development of technology into the worldview of those who think that the existence and development of technology are wrong because of unemployment. The church's original intention is good, using faith to maintain people's normal life and get through that period when technological innovation was difficult for ordinary people. But later, a group of people appeared in the Lutheran church, calling themselves Lutherswujing. The boss's face became more serious when he said this. They firmly believe in the existence of God as described by the church, but they think that the church itself is not acting as a spokesperson for God, but rather distorting God's will. Therefore, this group of people became independent from the church and even survived under official suppression and has developed to this day. Ludwig believes that all technology is a blasphemy against God and opposes all technological products. They believe that only through powerful and just actions can these blasphemous things be defeated to a greater extent, and only through violence can human arrogance and disrespect for God be cleared. Chen Ming couldn't help asking after hearing this, then they are still using technology such as spaceships and even modifying spaceships. Isn't this violating their doctrines? Indeed. The first batch of Ludwigs was indeed completely unjust. They will use any technological product after the technological explosion, but you have to think about how many years have passed since the technological explosion. Ludwiging has definitely not remained unchanged since its development. Some of them are willing to get into the quagmire and use the technology they hate the most to attack and destroy those cutting-edge technologies. In short, they are a group of terrorists or terrorists with faith. The boss suddenly changed the subject and said, "Of course, these are just the lowest level executors. Anyone with a brain knows that the current top management of Zwujing has taken advantage of these people who are either ignorant or forced by the situation. Their leaders are definitely not madmen who hate technology. They do this, and it is definitely profitable in some way. It is even possible that the companies that develop cutting-edge technology privately support it to delay the technological development of companies that compete with them. But this is just my guess. Just listen to it, don't say anything." That's about it. Chen Ming nodded, took a long breath and said, "I understand." He absorbed too much knowledge in a short period of time and had to digest it. But he still had one last question. Chen Ming's eyes turned to Old Wu, who had put down the terminal and was eavesdropping and peeping beside him. "Boss, I heard Old Wu talk about you before. He said you have a very bad hobby, and he stared at me with strange eyes at that time." The boss's face suddenly showed a little embarrassment that he had never had before, and said, "Well, let me keep this secret. I can guarantee that it is not some weird hobby, and it will not have any negative impact on you." Okay. Chen Ming chose to believe the boss and controlled the transport robot he brought to bring a few coffins. "Then I'll leave first. I'll have to talk to the factory manager about work arrangements later." "Well, come and sit down when you're free."
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.